I'm excited for this season of Rocket Motivation because my firm, Arendall, Harris and Sale, Attorneys at Law, where I am a partner, is our sponsor. We understand life and running a business can be challenging, but with the right support, it can also be incredibly rewarding. That's why we're thrilled to announce our partnership with Arendall, Harris and Sale.
My mission is to find a way to turn any obstacle that I see in my life into an opportunity for myself, for other people. It goes back to our mindset, and it starts with how we build a mindset, how we talk to ourselves, what we are doing. And I think there is always a way to turn our obstacles and challenges that we have into an opportunity if we choose to see it that way.
Hey everyone, this is Rod Cate, and welcome to this week's episode of Rocket Motivation. At age 22, this week's guest had just graduated from Georgetown University, had her job set, and was beginning to launch into her life. She was going into the hospital for procedure to correct an arteriovenous malformation in her brain. During pre-op, the malformation burst, causing her to have a stroke, leaving the left side of her body paralyzed and her unable to speak. She tells her story of rehabilitation and living her full life. Maddi Niebanck, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
Thank you so much for having me, Rod. I'm so happy to be here.
All right. Well, Maddi, we're glad to have you too. So let's do this, Maddi. Why don't you kind of catch us up? Tell the listeners kind of what you do now, where you are, where you live. Just, bring us up to speed.
Sure. So as you mentioned, Rod, my name is Maddi Niebanck. I'm a young hemorrhagic stroke survivor. I'm also an author and a disability advocate, and I work in fashion. So right now, I'm working a full-time job in my dream industry of fashion. I work for Hermes. So I work in the luxury sphere in client relations. And I'm based in New Jersey. So I live in New Jersey. I would love to move to New York as like my next step. But right now I am living in New Jersey, working and then doing a bunch of community building and connecting with the stroke community outside of that.
Okay. Let's go back to your Georgetown graduation. And also, if you would, kind of tell us kind of what condition that you had going on in your brain at the time. So tell us, kind of what was going on, what the plan was, and then how it ended up, what happened.
Sure. So I guess you could say that the journey really starts back when I was 7 years old. When I was 7, I started getting very severe, debilitating migraines off and on. And I thought it was just like a seasonal thing for a while. I started seeing a neurologist. Eventually, it kind of culminated in a series of migraines that lasted 24 days when I was 15. And my neurologist said, that's not normal. Like, no one should be having unrelenting migraines for basically a month at a time. And so I went in to get an MRI. And that MRI revealed that I had an arteriovenous malformation in the right occipital lobe of my brain. And it was interesting, Rod, because most people who have an AVM, as they call it, don't know about it until it ruptures or it's too late. Like, it's something you're born with, but you could potentially go your entire life not knowing you have one. So I guess you could say, lucky in the sense that I did know that I had this malformation in my brain. The question then became what to do about it. So I started consulting with a lot of different neurosurgeons. Half of them would tell me, this is too big, we need to get it taken out immediately, this is dangerous. Others told me, oh, it's so big, we can't operate on it. So you kind of like, we don't feel comfortable operating on it. And I learned that with each year of life is an increased chance of the AVM rupturing, you having a stroke, dying, bad stuff, right? So I didn't like those odds that with each year of life, with each year of life, the chance of it rupturing and bleeding, causing a stroke, dying, increases. So I decided ultimately that I was going to move forward with a brain surgery, but I decided to wait until after I finished my education. So I graduated from Georgetown. This was May of 2017. 10 days later, I went into New York Presbyterian for my scheduled craniotomy. As you mentioned, the AVM was so big, they couldn't just do the surgery. They had to do pre-operative procedure to clog it up and maybe like shrink it a little bit. So that procedure ended up causing the blood clot in my brain, which burst. And it's kind of funny that, or not funny is not the right word, but the very last thing I remember was laying in the ICU after the pre-operative procedure, bawling. I have a very high tolerance for pain, and I literally never cry, like even at the worst migraines, but I was in tears, crying to my mom, like, this is the worst pain I've ever felt. That's all I remember. Apparently, I was having a stroke. I guess I passed out. I was rushed into the OR, the neurosurgeon, they had to call him to have him come back because he had actually just left for the night to get a good night's sleep before doing my operation in the morning. So they call him back, like, she's having a stroke. You have to get back here and do the surgery now. So he's not slept, goes in, like, does the operation, 7 liters of blood transfusion I had to have. It was, I think, like a pretty long operation, like maybe 13 hours, but he did manage to stop the bleeding and remove the AVM. And I actually haven't had a migraine since. So that at least is one bright side of all of this that has come.
Right. And so right before you go in, so you've graduated from Georgetown. So what was your plan right at graduation? I guess, career-wise or, moving forward in your life, what were you going to do?
Upon graduation, I had accepted a job that was up in Boston in technology sales. And it was by no means, I would say, like a dream career or something that I had like really wanted to do, but it was more so just like I was applying for jobs. I got that. I was like, okay, I need a job when I finish school. Yeah. And the plan was that I was going to get surgery, recover for 2 months, and then move up to Boston and start my career. But that obviously didn't happen.
So you get a little detoured because you have this massive stroke. All right. And so I know you said you had the operation and they stopped the bleeding, but what was the result of the stroke residually with you on what you could and could not do?
So I was, like you mentioned, I was completely paralyzed on the left side of my body. So upon waking up from the stroke, I could not walk. I could not move my arm or my hand. I had lost a ton of vision on my left side. So in both of my eyes, like I don't have any peripheral vision on the left side. So I lost my vision and my sense of spatial awareness as well. So I had a phenomenon they call as left neglect, where you're not aware of like things on the left side of your body. So like I remember being an inpatient, and even by the time I was an outpatient, they would give me my food. I would eat it. I turned to my therapist or my mom and was like, all right, I finished all the food on my plate. And they would say, are you sure you ate everything on the plate? Like, look again. So I looked down at my plate. There's nothing there. Like, yes, I ate everything. And then my mom or my therapist would say, like, Maddi, look to the left side of the plate. I'm like, oh God. So that I look over, and sure enough, there's half of my meal that I just did not see. So that was, I think, the craziest thing I've had to adjust to, is like compensating for this lack of vision and lack of proprioception or spatial awareness. I've had to learn how to adapt to that, apart from the physical stuff.
Yeah, and tell us about your rehab. I mean, what did you do? How long did it take? Tell us about that.
Sure. So when after the stroke happened, I was in the ICU for 15 days. Basically in that time, all I learned how to do was kind of sit up in a wheelchair, because I had no trunk support either. So I had to learn how to do those most basic things of like sitting up again and sit in a wheelchair. I then went to an inpatient facility in New Jersey, which is quite near where I live, for 5 weeks of inpatient. By the time I learned how to walk with a quad cane there, so I learned how to use the cane, which was huge. I was using an ACE bandage because I have foot drop as well. So I need like an AFO brace or a Bioness, or that's what I use now. But back then I was using the ACE bandage. And I then graduated to the straight cane upon like graduation from inpatient. So after those 5 weeks, I made it to the straight cane. Then I started outpatient. I was in outpatient physical, occupational, speech, and cognitive therapy for like 2.5 years. I think it was. So I was doing it for a long time. I moved away from using my straight cane pretty soon after I got out of inpatient, because I told my therapist, I set a goal that I was discharged from inpatient on July 20th, and I had an appointment follow-up with my neurosurgeon at the end of September. I said to my outpatient physical therapist, I am walking into that appointment without a cane. I'm not going to have a cane by that time. And he's like, okay, like we'll try, like we'll see. And sure enough, I did end up walking into his appointment without a cane. Granted, I was very like kind of wobbly and maybe not the most stable, but I did walk in without the cane and then, kept working hard in therapy to improve my gait and gain more independence.
Right. Hey, all right. So what do you have today? What residual effects do you have from the stroke that you deal with today?
So I still have foot drop. Mostly what I wear these days is the Bioness to help with foot drop, but I do have an AFO that I can wear as well. So foot drop I still have. I can use my left arm in a very limited capacity. So my arm is much slower at recovering, I would say, than my leg has been. So not really being able to use my arm and like my hand and have fine motor skills to the extent that I would like has been a biggest residual thing that I'm still working on. But I think the biggest one is my vision, the lack of vision, which is not coming back, but I have to learn to compensate to that. So I think those are the biggest ones.
Gotcha. Okay.
I do still have like a little bit of neuro fatigue as well, but that's improved a lot.
Okay. Let me ask you this. All right. So the stroke happens. You just get graduated. Your friends are moving on with careers in their life. You're spending all your time rehabbing from a devastating stroke. How did that affect you, seeing that all your friends are moving on and then this happened to you? And you're like, did you think like, what the hell? How did that affect you?
I was thinking, this sucks. This is actually like the worst thing. Like you said, all of my friends have moved on. They've moved into the city, started jobs and, living what seems like amazing lives to me. And I'm stuck doing therapy. During that time that I was feeling a bit left out, or like a sense of FOMO, as they say, I had a conversation with one of my very closest and dearest college professors, Eric, and I was telling him about these sentiments I was having of feeling kind of left out. And he really encouraged me to take this time that I'm not working a full-time job, that I'm focusing on myself to really discover what my interests are and what I want to be doing and where I want to have my impact. Because ultimately, he encouraged me to view this as a second chance for myself. Like, I had accepted a job in an industry I wasn't necessarily passionate about or something I didn't even necessarily want to do, but I just took it because it was a job. He said, now is your time to like really sit down and figure out what it is you want to do, where you want to have your impact. And so I did a lot of thinking and I kind of kept coming back to fashion as something that I'd always been interested in. However, I had never really seen it as a potential career option for me, primarily because I didn't have any industry experience and I thought who would ever hire me. So Eric, my professor, really encouraged me to step out and start sending cold emails, interviewing people in my network, building a network of people in an industry that I was interested in, and just kind of start having intro conversations and see where that led. And it ultimately led to me having many conversations with people ranging from editors to small business owners to fashion executives to models. I talked to all different people in the industry and wrote up like my findings of where I saw the industry progressing over the next few years into my first book. What was interesting about that, though, is that I wove in anecdotes about how I was using this act of writing a book as a tool in my cognitive rehabilitation from having a stroke. And people, readers of my first book, seemed to really resonate with that, which is what inspired me to write my second book about the lessons of mindset that I've learned after having a stroke, like how I've learned to cultivate a positive mindset and having, a positive impact on others as well as myself through sharing my experience. And while I was working on writing that book, I also started building out a community online. And it's just been a really great way to connect this stroke and disability community and share my experience and also share the experiences of others. Right. And that's also why I love like being a part of things like this, like your podcast, I think is so amazing and also just a great way to get other people's stories out there.
Right. And we're going to talk about all of that, your books, everything you do in just a minute because you've got so much great stuff going on. But I want to step back and you've kind of already answered this question, but I want to make sure the listeners understand it. So how did having this stroke affect the way that you look at life?
Well, I would say initially I had a pretty negative outlook, like, why the heck did this happen to me? Like, this is, not what I wanted out of my life. Like, what did I do to deserve something like this? But I soon came to understand that, like, I'm not going to get better just by worrying about this or, not taking any action. That's not going to get me to where I want to be. So I realized that I had to put in the work if I wanted to see the results. And I learned during this time when I was working hard on my therapy that primarily your recovery begins with the mindset. Like, if you don't have a strong, good, positive mindset, like, you're, I think, less likely to make major gains. And so that's why I developed this concept of like a fully recovered mindset. By viewing our recovery as like having a strong mindset, then you can see, like, by embracing a positive mindset, you're more likely to make gains and like come to see your life in a different way, like see all of the positives that have happened even in light of like such trauma.
Right. Yeah. And just like, for instance, the fact that I guess it's really not that you changed your career path because you didn't really start your career yet because of the stroke.
Started, right.
But you decided, and after, this happened and you had your conversation with the professor, so you decide to go into fashion, which is something that you really were passionate about and wanted to do. I mean, I guess, why was it important for you after having this stroke to actually, just instead of, taking a job, to decide, I'm going to really do something I want to do?
It was important for me because I realized after having this experience of having a stroke, I realized how short and how fragile life is, and it can be taken from us in an instant. And I wanted to make the most of this second chance. Like, I statistically should not be here speaking to you right now. I should not have lived through almost having died from having a stroke, but I am. So now in my mind, it's like, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with my life now that I've been given a chance that I probably shouldn't have had?
Well, what do you want out of life, Maddi?
Many things, Rod. I want a lot out of life. What I want is to do things that make me happy. I want to do things that make me happy, that make others happy. I want to connect with others and build long-lasting, strong relationships. I want to travel. I love traveling. I want to see the world and have new experiences. I want to make friends. I want to put myself out there, make myself uncomfortable, share my experience, and then connect and collaborate with others. Because you never know who you're going to help by sharing your journey.
Yeah. What have you learned about yourself through all of this?
I've learned, well, I think a lot. I've learned, one, that I'm definitely stronger than I thought I was. Like, I'm much tougher. And now, I was just talking about this the other day to someone, that now that I'm about like almost 6 years out from when I've had this stroke, like, I look back on the early days when like I couldn't even sit in a wheelchair and I couldn't even walk with a cane. And it feels like a dream to me almost. Like, that was someone else going through the motions, because how the heck did I manage to do that or get through all of that? Like, I don't know, but I think when you're in the thick of it, it's very much like the way I was thinking about it was like, oh, I gotta keep trying. Like, I want to be able to walk again. I have to keep putting in the work. And then seeing the results like months, years later, it's crazy to actually look back and be like, wow, I did make progress. That's amazing.
Yeah. You have certainly gone through some adversity and you've come out the other side. What advice would you give to some listeners who, are just, they're having a tough time, they're down on their luck, things don't look good for their life. What advice would you give them?
I would say, one, be patient, because recovery is not going to happen overnight. So I would say be patient with yourself as well. So like, if you need to take breaks, that's okay. We all need to take breaks. So don't be so hard on yourself. Be patient. And also, don't be afraid to try new experiences, and don't let this limit you. Don't embrace like a limiting mindset of like, I can't do that because like I had a stroke. I used to think that way. And it's just not true. Like, I think keep your mind open to possibilities. And even if you can't do things in the same way that you used to, there is still a path forward. It just means you have to be more creative to find it.
Gotcha. Hey, all right, you mentioned your two books. What are their titles? Tell us kind of what they're about and how people can get them.
Sure. So my first book is called Fashion Forward: How Today's Culture Shapes Tomorrow's Fashion. And that's the one I wrote after interviewing a bunch of people in the fashion industry, just about major trends in fashion and how they foresaw the industry to be evolving and changing over time. And my second book is called Fast Forward: The Fully Recovered Mindset. And that's more personal, about my stroke journey and lessons that I've learned and insights I've gleaned from the first 3 years of my recovery journey. And both of them are available on Amazon.
Okay. I'm interested a little bit about, your career in fashion. So what do you do? And I know you got some things going on. I mean, I've seen Maddi's Closet on your Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us all about that stuff.
So I work in client relations, and what this means is I deal with boutique clients as well as website clients. So clients will call in to our stores or to our website and need help with anything from, they want to set up an order, they want to set up a return, they need a product availability for one of the boutiques, they need an update on their repair that they dropped off a few months ago. So it's a lot of working directly with the stores for updates to give the clients, as well as like helping them with like website issues or placing orders. I honestly love it because I like talking to these clients and I like building relationships with them and having customers who will call in and be like, I want to speak with Maddi. And I'm like, oh, yay. Mm-hmm. So I like being able to develop relationships with people, even if it's just over the phone.
All right, and tell us everything else that you do. Although we only have a 30-minute show, so we might be here for 2 hours because I know you do a lot. Because I follow you.
I'll be very quick.
But I mean, you do some great stuff. But first of all, I mean, Maddi's Closet that goes along kind of with what you do career wise. But you do some outreach. You do a bunch of stuff. So kind of just it's your floor now. Tell us what you do.
All right, yeah. So you mentioned Maddi's Closet. So Maddi's Closet is a brand new thing I just launched, which is a subscription fashion rental service. So it's really cool because you can get 2 boxes, 4 items, and there's so many different styles, types of clothing, shirts, dresses, pants, skirts, what have you. And it's all from like brands you may have heard of, like, for example, Express, BB Dakota, Vince Camuto, like well-known brands are on Maddi's Closet, and each week new styles are added to it based off of what you like. And it's really cool because you can get up to 4 items at a time, unlimited swaps. So like technically you could get a box, wear the items that day and then return it and pick up your next items. And there's no limit to how many times you do that in a month. It's a free 30-day trial and then it's $50 a month. And it's really cool. I've been using this service myself and I absolutely love it because I love clothes and trying new clothes and I don't necessarily want to buy them. But if you do choose to buy clothes that you rent from this, it's at a discounted price. So that's really great. So that's one of the things that I'm doing. Definitely, if anyone has questions about it, they can certainly contact me. I would love to talk more about that. I launched my community page recently as well. So there's a Maddi Stroke of Luck community page, and I've been hosting monthly community calls. So to connect the stroke and disability community. So we've had 3 of them now. And it's like different people have hopped on each time. And it's really great because we have people in Europe, people in the East Coast, the West Coast, people in Asia, like all over the world. Stroke survivors are joining these calls. And it's just really powerful to be able to connect and meet other people. So I've been doing that. Some of the stroke survivors on the page have been giving presentations to the community. Like we just had someone present on an accessible cruise that he took. Next week, I'm having an ischemic stroke survivor who is also a healthcare architect give a presentation on inclusive rehabilitative clinic design and stroke recovery. So there's a bunch of like really cool talks that are being hosted on the community page. So I definitely would love people to join that.
How can they join that?
The link is in my Instagram bio, but if anyone wants it, or if you want to include it in the notes, Rod, I can send you the link, but it's the Maddi Stroke of Luck community page. I can send along the link. Yes.
Yeah, that'll be good. Maddi, why is it that you wanted to do this, the community page, where you have this outreach to other stroke victims? Why is that important to you?
I thought it was important because I do a lot of like Instagram lives with my podcast co-host, Tawny, and we've come to realize like a lot of people want to come on and share their stories, but like when you do an Instagram live, you can only have a couple of people on there at a time. So it's not really like conducive. You can't do like group chats. And I know a lot of stroke survivors, because I talk to a lot of them, are interested in building that community and being able to connect with others. So I wanted to create a space that could facilitate that.
Okay, so Maddi, so you've got your own podcast. Tell us about that.
So I have a podcast with a young hemorrhagic stroke survivor. Her name is Tawny the Neuro Mermaid. And she and I started to go Instagram Live a couple of years ago and have kept doing it ever since. And we interview other stroke survivors and people in the disability community. And it's called Maddi and Tawny Surviving and Thriving.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Maddi, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a great episode. And you're doing so much just great stuff. You didn't let this stroke stop you. And actually, it sounds like the stroke was kind of a rebirth for you, actually, that where you've just now decided you're going to take your life and do what you want to with it. And what's great, it's not all about you either. It's your outreach to other people. It's really impressive. It's really inspirational what you're doing. And I really want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. I forgot to mention really quickly also Disability Travel Diaries is another initiative that I'm working on with my friend Chloe. And we're documenting the experience of traveling as two young women with physical disabilities. So that's something also we just recently launched, and I'm looking forward to like the future travels and sharing more of that experience as well. And
I think so the best way for somebody to find you, would that be on Instagram?
Probably, yes.
Okay. And how
email me off of my Instagram page would be the best way to get in touch, because the DMs sometimes get a little flooded or lost.
But your Instagram is Maddi Stroke of Luck?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So everybody, I'm telling you, I follow Maddi. It's really good stuff. All right, Maddi, but you can't go yet, because I always give the guests the parting shot. So Maddi, kind of dig deep. You've given us some great stuff already, but give us something really good to take us home.
So I'll leave with my famous saying that has become the motto for my life, and that is, obstacles are opportunities. You'll see that all over my Instagram because it's true. And that's like the phrase one of my friends early on in my recovery told me that, and it just kind of stuck. So my mission is to find a way to turn any obstacle that I see in my life into an opportunity for myself, for other people. And that's also what kind of prompted me to start sharing my story. So I think I would say to everyone on here that obstacles are opportunities. And while it may not always seem that way, like it goes back to our mindset, and it starts with how we build a mindset, how we talk to ourselves about what we are doing. And I think that there is always a way to turn our obstacles and challenges that we have into an opportunity if we choose to see it that way.
All right, Maddi, great stuff. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Rod.
What a great episode with Maddi Niebanck, getting ready to start her life after graduating college, and she gets derailed with a major stroke. She didn't let the stroke stop her and is living her best life today. Next week's guest is Kevin Olmstead. Kevin was fishing in the southern part of Mobile Bay when he fell out of his boat. He swam, floated, and eventually held on to a piling and was rescued 9.5 hours later. He tells his story of survival. Going to be a great episode. See you next week. Thanks again for listening to Rocket Motivation. I want to again thank our sponsor, my law firm, Arendall, Harris & Self, with offices in Mobile, Birmingham, Fairhope, and Athens, Alabama, and Destin, Panama City Beach, and Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. We are uniquely situated among the Southeast major law firms to provide legal direction to clients throughout Alabama and Northwest Florida. So whether you're looking for legal advice, litigators, or simply a partner you can trust, Hand Arendall Harrison Sale is there for you. Thank you for listening, and be sure to check out Hand Arendall Harrison Sale for all your legal needs. Visit our website at handfirm.com. And if you would like to get my book, Get Back Up, it's available at Amazon. Just put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Cate, and the book will pop up. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to Rocket Motivation wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please rate and review the shows and spread the word about Rocket Motivation to your friends. So until next time, remember, never give up and always get back up.